It's strange how silence can feel heavier than gunfire. Veterans talk about it all the time, the way certain stretches of empty forest or abandoned barracks seem to hum with something that isn't there. Places where footsteps echo too sharply or shadows move just a second too late. For soldiers, danger usually wears a clear face, an enemy uniform, a flash from a distant muzzle, the rattle of a helicopter. But every now and then, what haunts them most isn't the memory of war. It's the things that waited for them far from the front lines. Stories of ghostly patrols, whispered voices on empty radios, and figures glimpsed through night vision that weren't supposed to exist. Tonight, we're stepping into those memories. These are 5 unsettling stories shared by military veterans, each one a reminder that some battlegrounds are darker than we ever imagined. Staff Sergeant Mark Ruiz had been stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, for nearly a decade. He thought he knew every twist of those pine woods. But one evening, his training unit was running a land navigation exercise when they stumbled on something wrong. Through the thinning dusk, they saw 4 soldiers, all in outdated woodland camouflage, gathered around what looked like an old paper map. Ruiz called out, expecting maybe a National Guard unit or a reenactment group. None of them reacted. They just kept pointing at the map, muttering. When the trainees moved closer, the group turned in perfect unison, expressionless faces, eyes oddly blank. Ruiz felt a deep drop in his gut, an instinct telling him to pull back. So he did. Later, he reported the incident. The base historian quietly told him about a platoon that had gone missing there during training exercises in 1995. Their bodies were found months later, scattered across the forest. Officially, it was exposure. But veterans still whisper about ghost patrols that never made it home, replaying missions in endless loops. In Afghanistan, Corporal Jeremy Lang was tasked with clearing a derelict Soviet-era bunker system outside Kandahar. Locals claimed it was haunted, but to the Marines, that was just village superstition. Lang's fire team entered through a collapsed corridor that led into a series of cool, pitch-black rooms. About 20 minutes in, their radios started picking up static mixed with faint voices, someone speaking Russian. They assumed it was interference from old equipment. Then one of the guys pointed his rifle down a narrow hall. The night vision lit up a pale figure crouched on the floor, thin arms wrapped around its knees. It seemed to rock slightly, like it was sobbing. Thinking it was a civilian or possibly a trafficked prisoner, they advanced. As soon as they stepped closer, the figure jerked its head up. The face was sunken, eyes wide and glassy, and its mouth stretched open in a soundless scream. Their NVGs overloaded, whiting out completely. When the image cleared, the hallway was empty. They called in an airstrike and sealed the bunker. Even years later, Lang couldn't shake the memory of how that thing had looked at him, like it recognized him. During the Korean War, Lieutenant Paul Sheehan's artillery unit was dug into a frozen ridge. One night, they picked up a distress call on an emergency frequency. An American radioman was pinned down by Chinese troops. The coordinates were close, so Sheehan and 2 volunteers hiked out to find him. They followed the static-laced pleas through the dark hills until they spotted a helmet glinting in the moonlight. The soldier was slumped against a tree, clutching his radio pack, blood on his sleeve. Sheehan knelt beside him and tried to get a pulse. The skin was stiff and icy. Then the radio crackled again. Same voice, same desperate call. It was coming from the set strapped to the dead man's back. Panicked, they cut the radio off and practically dragged each other back to camp. When they reported it, a grizzled sergeant just spat and said, "Yeah, that hill's hungry. Always has been." Sheehan returned home but never forgot that hollow voice repeating over and over. "This is Able 2-5, taking fire, coordinates as follows." Not all hauntings happen overseas. Sergeant Dana Phillips had just left the Army when she moved to rural Pennsylvania. Locals often talked about the old bridge outside town. During World War II, it was a popular drinking spot for soldiers shipping out. Some never returned, and a few were said to have jumped in despair. Phillips was skeptical, but one humid night, driving home, she decided to pull over and look. The bridge was silent, the water below pitch black. As she stood there, she heard something faint, like boots scraping on concrete behind her. She spun around, flashlight sweeping empty road. Then came the scream, piercing, raw, echoing under the bridge. It didn't sound human. Phillips ran to her car, heart pounding, and didn't slow until she hit her driveway. A few days later, she talked to an older neighbor who nodded solemnly. "That bridge collects pain," he said. "All that sorrow's gotta go somewhere." Perhaps the strangest of all comes from Vietnam. Sergeant Bill Kearns was stationed at Firebase Echo in Quang Tri. His unit frequently reported seeing someone on the perimeter at night. They'd spot a lone figure walking along the edge of the jungle, just beyond the wire, too dark to see details, always slipping behind trees when challenged. One humid evening, Kearns decided to catch whoever it was. He and two riflemen waited outside the main gate under moonlight, weapons ready. After an hour, they heard soft crunching in the leaves. A shape emerged, tall, thin, almost draped in the darkness itself. Kearns called out, demanded identification. The figure stopped, turned its head slowly. No face, just a blank smear where features should be. Then it stepped backward and dissolved into the tree line. The next morning, they found footprints circling the entire firebase, deeper than any normal boot print, as if something heavy had pressed down from above. Some of the men refused to sleep alone after that. Others started carving strange symbols into their helmets, hoping it would keep the watcher away. Even after the guns fall silent, the battlefield doesn't always let go. For some veterans, the war follows them home in memories and scars. For others, it lingers in these stranger moments, faces in the dark, voices on dead radios, or footprints that lead nowhere. What makes these stories so disturbing isn't just the horror itself, it's that they come from people trained to confront fear. Soldiers who faced real human threats, yet still found themselves shaken by something they couldn't shoot or outmaneuver. Maybe that's why these tales feel heavier. If even the toughest among us can be haunted by shadows, what chance do the rest of us have when the night grows too quiet? Of course, skeptics will say stress and exhaustion play tricks on the mind, that years of hypervigilance can make even the calmest place feel hostile. And maybe they're right. Maybe there's nothing out there but old legends and the echoes of trauma. Still, there's a reason these stories keep resurfacing. Why grown men and women lower their voices when they talk about them, even decades later. Some places hold on to fear the way the air holds on to a storm, waiting for the right moment to break. So the next time you pass a dark forest, a derelict bunker, or a lonely bridge, ask yourself who or what might still be standing there, watching, long after the living have moved on. Thanks for spending time with us in the shadows tonight. If you want more unsettling true stories, subscribe and join us again. There's always another chilling secret waiting to be uncovered.